So violence seems to be a common response to conflict in South Africa. You only need to go to work on a Monday morning to experience that. Two videos emerged this week highlighting the problem. One was between a pupil and a teacher, while the other was between parliamentarians. Director of Dynamic Conflict, Marion Shaer, joins us in studio to talk us through how to handle conflict as a country. A very good morning to you, Shaw. What a big, overwhelming thing to talk about on a Saturday morning. Are we an angry society?
Hello, Judy. Yes, I think we are. You know, I think a reality is we come from a very, very specific context in our country, which has not always been a pretty context, and we carry that along with us as members of society.
Right.
So there is a lot of anger, and we can see that not only in South Africa. I think we can see it anywhere in the world, really. But it is a challenge as to how we channel that anger and how we try and create a society where the default isn't to use violent means, but rather to use that anger in some kind of constructive manner.
So that's overall as a country. When you look on an individual basis, if you are on your way to work or on your way somewhere at 7 o'clock in the morning, already there's someone who's irritated in traffic, honking their horn, and you can just tell that this will be a situation if something is not done. How many road rage incidents have we had? On a personal level, how do you control yourself?
Gosh, you know, the work that we do is trying to give people the tools to manage conflict. So to manage their own conflict, to manage conflict between employees, in the school environment, which is illustrative of what we saw this week on social media. So it really is, I think it does start with the self, because if we don't understand conflict, if we don't understand that conflict is there, it's in every single place that we're at, and how do we want to impact on that, on the way that conflict plays itself out in society? If we don't have that level of reflection, it's very difficult to manage it.
Sure.
So it's really understanding that there's a background to this conflict. The conflict comes from somewhere. You know, people are feeling worthless, or feeling frustrated, or feeling hard done by in some way, and that's, you know, and then the path goes, and eventually you see the conflict in a manifestation of it, in a slap.
Yeah.
Or in a shove.
Let's get into that. So let's perhaps play, for the benefit of our viewers who may have missed it in the week, the video that we're talking about of the pupil and the teacher, the altercation that we saw on social media this week.
Okay.
You should have a book like this. Please take this as evidence down. Please! This is a disciplinary hearing now. Take out the... This is your book. It must look like this. Where's your book? You don't have one. Strike one. One for me, 0 for you. Right? Your phone shouldn't be in your hands. You shouldn't have a phone. You want to challenge me? My dear, you're going to get lost. I've been where you've been. Yes. I have 3 degree too. Working on my 3rd one. You don't even have a book in grade 9. Okay? That is what it should look like. This thing I shouldn't see. Code of conduct. Must I show you the code of conduct? There. Do you know what it says about phones? Why do you disobey that? Why don't you have a book?
Don't change it, man.
What? What did I swear? What did I say to you?
Everybody heard you, man.
What did I say to you? What did I say? Tell me. What did I say? Kom, ik ben klaar. Kom. So you're swearing at me?
I'm swearing at you. What are you swearing at?
So you're speaking a different language in my class. That's it. Ik ga dit in volgende gooi. Ik bewe van kwaad gaan. Want ik heb niet tijd. Dus op. Vat het. Uit my class uit. I'm not swearing at you. I'm chasing you out of my phone. Go call Mr. Engel. Go call Denise now. Give me your phone. You shall not have this. This is against the code of conduct. Are you here? Are you here? You pushed me. Swearing me.
That escalated very quickly. What stands out for you in terms of what we just saw?
Well, I think we've seen a very short clip, and we don't know how long that conflict has been brewing for. We don't know how many instances similar to that there has been before this. So the first kind of comment to make about that specifically is that it doesn't seem to me that any of the parties in the clip are at any point trying to calm the situation down. You know, they are just riling each other up, and then reaching a point where it erupts, you know, physically. And, you know, before physically in terms of language use and threatening behaviour. So the question really to me is, in a school environment like that, what is being done to calm things down? What is being done to manage the conflict that will exist there, because it exists in every single school there is?
Yeah.
So are there structures? Are there systems? If that was a disciplinary hearing, as per it seems as if there was some issue around discipline, you know, is there a progressive sense of managing conflict?
I've heard two schools of thought on this particular video this week. One that says, when you look at the power dynamics, she's a child, she's an adult, and perhaps the adult should have acted in a different manner. In terms of the child, there's a school of thought that believes that we have lost respect for our elders, and that extends to the classroom. In terms of the adult, it seems there was a sense of fear from the teacher, and so when she slapped her, it was almost as if she feared this child in front of her, that she would attack her. What do you make of that?
Look, I think at the end of the day, situations like this need to be managed more effectively. And the only way they can be managed more effectively is if learners and teachers understand conflict is going to happen. In instances where conflict does surface, how do we deal with it? Do we have people among us who are trained to assist us? Do we have structures within the school that are trusted and that are taken seriously by all stakeholders in that environment, that can be used to deal with a situation like this? I mean, what about the people around the other children in that class? You know, have any of them had any sense of, what is my role? Do I aggravate a situation, or do I moderate it in a classroom when things will at points explode? You know, we come from a society where there are so many competing interests and competing needs, and we need to have structures in which to firstly manage the conflict, but I think also secondly to try and understand where the conflict comes from. You know, to do the deep dive into understanding what's informing the learner, what's informing the teacher. You know, why have they got to that situation in the learning space?
For somebody who's watching and says, you know, sometimes I just don't even know how to control myself or the rage, what practical steps are there at that moment to catch yourself? Do you breathe? Do you walk away? Do you wusa? What do? You rub your ears? Do you rub your toes? What do you do?
Well, I think we all do different things, and really, it's probably having the conversation with yourself. What do I do? You know, so. The example you used about coming to work in the morning and just witnessing a number of road rage type situations, you know, it's having the conversation. So what do I do? What impact can I have on a situation? How can I be a moderator on the roads, in the classroom, at work, in my church organization? You know, what role do I play? Do I fuel the fires? Do I aggravate the situation by getting onto the hooter myself, or do I try and calm things down? Do I let someone through? Do I wave to a passenger to take the gap? You know, so it's very much, you know, what do I do? But I think people need to understand that conflict is with us. You know, that is the big thing. And if we understand, we all have conflicts in our lives. Every single one of us have tensions and conflicts. And if they start arising and they start triggering off behaviors, then can we look at them and think about, okay, well, you know, what is my role here? How do I impact on the situation?
Me, because it starts with you.
There.
You can only control yourself. Thank you very much for coming through to chat to us this morning. That was Director of Dynamic Conflict, Marion Shaer.